This is Amigos PC.
If you were looking for a highbrow, fancy, smart, regal podcast with hosts that love to talk about horse riding, badminton, and trips to the vineyard, you're in the wrong place. This is Amigos PC. If you're looking for drinking, random nonsense, stunts, shenanigans, and balls out craziness, you've hit the jackpot. This is Amigos PC, and this is Scott and Mark.
Hello, hello. Today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co. That's podgo.co. And be sure to add our podcast in the How Did You Hear About the Podgo section. Amigos PC. Well, there's no part there. Sorry. Yeah. Section in the application.
Woo!
I did it. All right, I'm out of here.
Yes.
You guys got this?
Yep. Show's over, guys.
Show's over. Thanks for coming.
Shout out to Trish Rayona for our guest today, with a very convenient name for the career that you've chosen, Susie Sitcom.
Susie
What's
Sitcom.
up? Hi guys. Thanks for having me on the show.
You're very thank you for
coming
on.
Sure.
So prior to us going live, you and Scott were having a joyful conversation about family and
Yeah, was that what that is? Is that what that was?
No, it just, we were just saying it was just a little bit strange because my hair was kind of crazy. Trying to hair, but the reflection is, I can't tell what side. I know there's only two sides, but the right side is messy on the screen, and I'm trying to fix it on the right side, but I'm touching the left side, so it's just hard to figure out. And so,
and you did ruin it because now the ear is covered now. The one that I said to leave. It's there.
So this is the ear that you want it out, and this is the ear you want. See, I got it down.
There we go.
And
there must be a fan on or something.
Scott's a great dad. You can tell he's got kids because he was good at directing. Either that or he's like a softball coach or something.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I do both. I'm a dad and a softball coach.
Look how I knew that.
We haven't won a game yet, but it's fun.
You guys enjoy yourselves at Pizza Hut every
that's the only time. That's why I do it.
Piper now?
I don't know.
The Pizza Hut.
You can't.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark, are you married with kids as well, or?
I am happily married. No,
Nice. Yeah. Well, shit, I didn't say that one when we talked earlier.
Yeah, you forgot the happily part. That's kind of a dip there.
Yeah, shit.
I have 2 girls and 1 son.
Perfect. How old are your kids?
The girls are 15 and 12. 12, and then my son is about to be 5.
Oh, so nice.
Time
Hey,
flies.
Okay, a question for you. Like, my kids are not teenagers yet. They're, in elementary school, but one is in elementary school, one's in middle school. One's 9, one's 11. So does it get easier at 15 or get harder? Because dating and all that, so...
It gets more annoying.
It's more annoying. Okay, I understand that.
It's not that it's harder. It's just like...
They listen less, obviously.
I was thinking about this the other day, actually.
And they know it all.
You bring it up, yeah, right?
Yeah.
So my oldest, was doing something that was annoying me, and I was all like, God, I must have been the most annoyingest kid ever when I was that age. Like, I can't... Because now I'm like going back into like my parents' shoes, and I'm like, cause I don't want to say things that they said to me, but at some point it just comes out, and you're just like, man.
Right. It's don't do what I say, just do what I do. Why? Because I'm your mom.
Yep.
I know. It's so hard. Especially in quarantine. I totally feel like my kids, my older, she acts like she's in charge.
Yeah.
And for a little while during quarantine, I let her feel that way because I just felt so bad that they were home, that they were home and not with their friends. So I'm like, oh, whatever, just do what you want. It could be the end of the world. I don't know, So now it's been 11 months. I'm like, hey, take it easy. I let you like have fun, be in charge, but it's time to normal. I'm the mom. Let's reestablish these rules. You were the children, you know?
Yeah.
And the world's ending, so we got to go back to some order. Yeah.
Yeah.
A few weekends ago, my kids found my hidden chocolate because now it's like we're all home, so I actually have to hide things from them, treats. So they're not really good with sugar, and so I hid my chocolate, and they found it behind the mushroom and the weeds. You know, they like found the chocolate, they knew what to get, and they ate all the chocolate in one sitting, and they went absolutely bonkers. That's why I don't give my kids sugar, and they just start jumping on the couch, and then they wrote like signs and plastered on the wall. No crazy lady. They're locked their door, and I'm like, they're getting ready to tie me up. I'm like, oh my god, I'm like living with pirates. It's like Lord of the Flies in here because of quarantine. There's nothing left to do. They're done staying in. They're just gonna take over, and they want to leave. I'm like, oh, this is where we're at with quarantine here.
Prison riot, huh?
But the chocolate was behind the mushrooms and the weeds?
Yeah, they knew not to touch the edibles in the weed.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I was like, sure they ate the chocolate?
Right? They're like, ew, it's a vegetable. We're not touching these mushrooms.
Yeah, unless they're magical.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, they are, but they're still, to the kids, are like, ew, it's a vegetable. Right, don't touch it. So I hid the chocolate behind the vegetable, which is actually the psilocybin mushrooms, but
right.
And the weed they're not going to touch because it's grass, right? It's green. It's like, oh, ew, vegetable.
Yep.
So it's the perfect place to hide your chocolate for all you parents out there. If you have a hidden stash of candy or chocolate that you don't want your kids to touch, hide it behind the weed and the mushrooms, and it's perfect. Although my kids did find it, so they were smart enough.
I gotta jot this down now. This is good info.
It is.
It's like double vegetables, right? Greens. So they're not gonna go for the greens. The mushrooms. Ew, mushrooms.
It's true.
So maybe that's what we'll name the episode: "Parenting Tips" by Susie
Yeah.
Sitcom.
Parenting tips.
Great. The DCFS is going to be at my door after this episode. But, it is considered an essential. Those are essential goods here in LA. Even though things were shut down, the weed stores were still open. Liquor stores were still open.
Yeah.
Because people have
I didn't
hope.
partake before quarantine, but since it was essential and, society told me that I should do it, I joined, I just
peer pressure at its best.
Yeah, I take the peer pressure. I did what LA told me to do.
Now, I like you said, you're in LA. You originally, or one thing I wanted to talk about is I'm originally from the Midwest, and your bio says you came from the Chicago area. I actually grew up in Wisconsin, where they currently have a blizzard right now.
Yeah.
What took you from Chicago to LA?
Really? Do you have to ask that? Really? Like, son?
It's in her name,
right?
It's in your name.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Chicago, lived there my whole life, and when I graduated high school, I wanted to leave. I wanted to go somewhere warm. But, I finished college and stayed home with my parents, and then when school was done, I was like, okay. I mean, I did leave for a little while. I left after high school. I took, I don't know what they call it now. They call it something different. The kids call it something different. You take a year off before you go to college.
Sabbatical.
That's what we call it, sabbatical, but there's something else the kids call it. The kids call it
a time off?
Yeah, a timeout.
Yeah.
No, there's a like new hipster term for it. They call it.
I think we're too old for that.
A break?
Yeah.
No. There's something.
That'd be 90s. That's the Friends. We were on a break. No.
Yeah, no. There's actually like a term. There's some term, but it's not so bad. I don't know. I can't think of it right now. I'll think of it later. Not
we're too old. We're all too old. That's what that means. We're all too old. We don't know what the new hip shit is.
She'll text later and she'll be like, she'll say the word and then.
Yeah. Then we'll know. Oh, I've heard that, but I didn't know what it means. That's I didn't know what that meant.
Anyway, so I took off. I went to Florida, worked for Disney World for 6 months. Came home because I had some family stuff to deal with, and then went to school in Chicago. And I was like, all right, I'm here, help out my family. But as soon as I'm done with college, I'm taking off. And I did. I went to Europe, took off, went to London for a month. I said, I'm going to go find a job in London. Didn't think about work permits and stuff. I couldn't work because I didn't have a work permit. It's, Commonwealth. And then went to Switzerland, met a guy there, stayed there for a couple weeks. And then my mom said she was dying. I called her.
Oh,
she just came home. I'm dying. Well, overseas, it's came home and she was totally fine. Just wanted me to come home. Got back to Chicago. I'm like, I got to get out of here. And so I met my husband. I went to school with him, but I met him the second I got back. I was going to a job interview, and I was driving. He was walking, and honked at him, said hi, went out on a date, and we were together for 23 years.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was kind of awesome until I said I wanted to leave. I wanted to go to California because I said, it was one of the things I always wanted to go. And he's like, no, this is my move. I moved to Chicago from a small town. And I'm like, all right, I'll give you some time. And that time it was 10 years. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to go check things out in California. Came back 6 weeks later. I'm like, come on, let's do something. Didn't want to do anything. We decided, okay, I'm going to have kids. My kids went to school for 5 years. Kids went to school, and then it was it's time for kindergarten. I took care of them at home, and then it was it's time for kindergarten, and it was just, we put them in public schools. They were shit in Chicago. Sorry, you got to go private.
Yeah.
So it came to that point, are we going to move to the suburbs, pay $1 million for a house in the suburbs, continue to pay a private school in the city? You know what I mean? It's just it's so expensive. Mm-hmm. So do I want to not only leave the city, do I want to go back to the suburbs where I grew up and basically die there? Or am I going to make that move to California? And I'm like, my husband's like, well, if you can do X, Y, and Z, put the house on the market, we had a place in Wisconsin, put that place on the market, if you get it all done, I'll go. He didn't think that I could do all that.
Oh, no.
I did it all. As a woman, if something
they
do it, right?
Yeah,
So
they handle it.
Remodel market. It took me a month to get everything together, but then once I got everything on the market, boom, 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 it sold. I was ready to go, and he was like, "What?" And so he didn't expect it. But we left, and we were gone. And we moved and came to California. And I think, honestly, it was just too much for him. And so it killed our marriage. So it's fun. Yeah, it's pretty sad because it was my dream to come out here. And I didn't think it would bust my marriage open. But when you have something inside of you that you have to do for so long, and it's for you, and you put it aside for someone else, you can't do that. And then also in that... I put him under that. I knew I was making a sacrifice by staying home to be with him. And, I don't know. It was kind of it was bullshit because he had no intention. And then when he came out here, it was just one complaint after the other. And then marriage blew up 5 years later, so I've been divorced for 2 years and really depressing that I even started talking about this. I don't know why. And now I'm here. So that's my life.
So,
from Chicago to LA. Yay! I need to drink.
So
right?
did you have it all, you probably knocked it out in a week or so, had everything lined up. He got home from work and it's time to move. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Was it something like that? Because I know how
pretty
that
much,
goes.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, pretty much. When you guys are both married, so when your wife is determined, she decides she wants something.
Yeah.
It's a big question. It's okay, she'll ask you for your permission, but she in her mind she's already made up her mind, right?
Yeah.
She just
that's true.
You with courtesy, right? It's just kind of like a courtesy. You're my husband. I'm asking you, but you better agree because you're my husband, right?
Yeah.
So it was one of those, and Yeah, I didn't know it'd be so scary for him. I guess for some people that move, the move is scary for him. You came from Wisconsin. I'm sure, what he got, which I didn't get at all, was, wow, you're so brave to move from Illinois to California. I'm like, oh, it's not like you're saving lives. You move from cold weather to warm weather. I
moved to a better situation.
Better weather, for sure.
Yeah, it's the weather. It's just the sunshine. I love the sunshine, and I just get really depressed that I love Chicago. I love the fat-ass food. I love the culture. I love the architecture. Mm-hmm. Everything, the museums, the people, but I couldn't stand the gray weather and everything that came along with that. It was the depression, the complaining about the weather. Everybody in Chicago, it's like any conversation you have with somebody, it's 45 minutes. It starts with the weather. And if you want to change the mood, then you go to fat ass food and you talk about food. And then you kind of end up in a little fight because nobody agrees on the food. And with you agree, but then they don't agree because they're just going to not agree for the hell of it, So.
Right. Or they're fighting over the tolls. All the toll roads you guys have there, right?
Yeah. It's always something. So it's a very different mindset up here than it is there. What about in Arizona compared to Wisconsin?
Well, it's obviously the weather, right?
That's
really what made me decide to come here. But I grew up in a smaller city, about 80,000 people. So coming here to the Valley, which is 5 million maybe in total. It was a big culture shock. But yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with having sun 360 days a year.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, we have 5 rain days. We've had those already, so we're good for the year.
Isn't that nice? I mean, I noticed that things are just brighter and greener. It's almost like living in Technicolor because the sun's so bright. You can see the edges on the plants and the flowers look brighter and everything. I'm like, wow. It has nothing to do with, I used to think, it was just the way things on television, was the color corrected. The difference between Chicago and California, but things are actually brighter because the sun is brighter.
Yeah.
So plants, greens, right? It's just and same with Arizona. It's just if you have more sunshine, they're brighter looking. So
I know. I took my brother out to California the one time he came to visit us here in Arizona, and I told him, I'm like, dude, you gotta wear sunblock. You gotta protect yourself while you're out. The sun is different, and he has a shaved head. So we were sitting at Huntington Beach for a majority of the day. And I'm like, did you put any sunblock on? He's like, no, I'm good. But later that day, a huge indentation of just like this blister that was created. He refused to put
brain
sunblock
was cooking.
on. Yeah,
he cooked his brain.
Wow. That's so nasty.
Darn Midwesterns.
I know, you give them enough warnings, but I mean, if they're still stupid enough to just sit there and let it bake, dude, you don't get it.
Yeah, this one is different.
Did you
People refuse to believe it.
Did you start your comedy career in Chicago?
I started Second City in Chicago. I started in improv. What happened was my kids were acting, so they started. My daughter at 1, she said she wanted to be in the TV. It's like a whole nother story. I was like, yeah, that's crazy. I'm from Chicago. That's so impractical. Whatever, you know what I mean? It's cute, but whatever. Yeah. And she would be singing in the hallway. She'd sing in Costco. She'd sing in elevators. It was like to the point where it was just ridiculous. So people would be stopping, clapping, and like, oh, she's got to be in commercials. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Yeah, she's a cute kid, but I'm afraid of. I have kids. I'm like, I don't know. I have kids for the first time, and I'm afraid of weirdos. So I'm not on social media. And I don't want my kids out. And I'm from the city. Like everybody's a fucking creep. No way. I don't want my kids anywhere. And it just got to the point where my daughter was asking me, I'm like, how are you asking me about this? How do you even understand what this is? You're 2.5 years old, which was just, I thought it was a little bit bizarre, almost divine sent that she was saying this because I'm like, we're from, it's not like we're in California, right? Where everyone acts or even know anyone who's on TV. So it was weird. But because of all the encouragement, we finally just got her signed up, and that was the deal. I was like, I told my husband, I said, you can do it, because he wanted to do it. I said, you want to get my kid signed up? He was in theater in high school and college. I said, your responsibility. You do it. I'll deal with contracts on the back end, but you have to lose weight, lift weights, and make sure that when people look at you from across the street, you look like that you could rip their fucking heads off if they looked at my daughters any wrong way at all. I go, that's the rules.
Yeah.
And so, fine. He went on a diet. He lost weight. He started hitting was crazy. Like, he did everything I said because I'm like, you have to look mean. You got to look like straight up Mark Wahlberg fucking tough before I let you do this with the children, you know?
Did you go out and buy those fake tattoo sleeve shirts for him to wear every time he went out?
No, you just went around with like knuckles and metal knuckles or whatever.
Yeah.
I put the grills on his teeth and stuff.
Heck yeah. That's the way to do it.
She wanted to look like...
I Sharpied a teardrop.
Teardrop? Yes.
She wanted to look like Mark Wahlberg, so he's running around saying, "Say hello to your mother for me."
Yep. Nice.
Yeah. I hit you in the nods. if you get close to my kid. But he did it, but he wasn't. He's a extra introvert, so I was like, okay, how do I encourage this a little bit more? How do I help? And we decided, okay, let's go to take classes. And he wouldn't take classes. He didn't want to do it. I said, this is not good. The kids' agents, they got signed. Kids said, they have to take improv classes. I said, improv? They're 3 and 5 years old. What do they need improv class? They can't even read. They got to learn how to read first, They said, take them to Second City. The agents take them to Second City. The girls got signed with the biggest agency in Chicago. Take them to Second City. They have a great program for improv for kids. It's just so they get in front of the camera and get in front of people. I'm like, okay, why not? Second City. Everybody knows Second City, Chicago. Saturday Night Live fan since I was a kid, right?
Yep.
Everyone went there. Jim Belushi, John Belushi, Chris Farley, right? David Spade. So it's like, okay, we'll do this, right? So I said for a night, instead of going out hiring a sitter, because we did that, I said, instead of going out to eat, let's do improv. I called Second City. They had a class, adult class for improv, a beginning session. There were two spots left. There happened to be 2 spots left the night we wanted for our date night. And so it all lined up. The sitter lined up. We got the 2 classes. It was great before I agreed to sign my daughter, because I'm like, I got to check out the perverts here.
Yeah,
before I go, I have to do it. I'm like, because that was the thing. I tried to sign my daughter up for improv, but they said I couldn't go in the classroom. And at that point, my kids were too young. I hadn't dropped them off anywhere yet, except for like half a day of preschool, right? So I'm like, the first place I want to drop my kid off is at an adult Second City, comedy place. I'm like, no, it doesn't work for me. So that's why we ended up going to Second City and taking improv classes. Sorry, it's such a long story, but we took the first improv class. It went great. The second improv, I'm like, let's keep going. So we took the second improv. I'm like, wow, it just did so great things for our marriage and stuff. The instructor pulls me aside and said, Susie, I want you to do stand-up. And I said, what? He goes, yeah, I would like, because you have to perform every week in our class and stuff. And he's like, okay, Susie, I want to put you in a stand-up show. I have a close show. It's on Sunday mornings at Second City, on the side stage here at Second City. Cool. No big deal. I'm like, okay. And my husband's like, and this was in front of the whole class. And my husband, they were so excited. They're like, oh my God. Because the way she tells stories, it's like she's doing stand-up anyways. I'm like, whatever. I'm like, that's fine. If you think I could do it, I can do it. And my husband goes, in front of everybody, you don't even know what stand-up is. So I was like, whoa, wait a second. Since I was 5 years old, I watched with my father, who was a big Richard Pryor fan, Fred Fox fan, Steve Martin fan. I said, English was his third language, but the one thing we had in common was he had a great sense of humor. So as a family, we watched stand-up comedy. And in fact, my first 45 album was Steve Martin's King Tut. So comedy was bred in our life, So I was like, anyways, it was really like, I thought about maybe not doing, but the fact that he humiliated me like that, I was like, "Fuck you! Of course I'm going to do this, right?"
So on the drive home, it was, I'm going to go to California.
No, so it was like I got on stage.
I'm going to California to make him want to leave.
But I got on stage at City in Chicago, and I didn't even prepare. I'd never taken a stand-up class, right? And I just talked about my daughter's birthday. It happened the day before, and I couldn't believe the feeling. I got up there, and I was like, holy shit, I feel at home. I mean, I'm 41 years old. I've had plenty of jobs. I had a business for 15 years. I've had 2 businesses, and I'm like, but this is the first time where I felt like I didn't have to work harder than everybody to be, where I'm supposed to, like, I felt like this is the place I need to be. This is what I needed to be doing my entire life. Right. So, I started Second City. and he invited me back to perform every other week on Sunday. So I didn't even know about classes, open mics. I mean, I just started performing in a show at the Second City Side Stage when I started. Awesome. It was 5 years ago. And that's what I did. And then when I moved out here, I just thought, oh, it's a hobby. I'll do it. I'll take some classes out here. It'll be fun. And people invited me to shows, and they kept inviting me, and that's kind of what happened. My husband didn't like it. The more and more shows I did, the less and less I got interested in taking care of the kids when I went out to shows, and got to the point where he wasn't even feeding my kids, our kids. Yeah. He just got so angry because this was his dream. And it turned out he wanted to be a stand-up comedian, but he never told me. I didn't know. So he got really, really jealous of me.
You took his dream that he didn't talk about.
I took his dream, basically.
That he didn't talk about. Yeah.
I mean, like, it was just so...
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know. Like, I didn't say, like, I feel bad because there are a lot of people that are classically trained and acting and... they go to college for that. I went to college for business. I was in production for, 10 years. I was in finance for 10 years. I was doing this as a date night. Like, I was so excited to go to class. I did my hair and makeup, and I was so happy to be there and just out of my house with a sitter without my kids, and I just showed up. And it found me. And my instructor was in improv troupe who not only taught at Second City. He was with, he was in an improv troupe. He traveled with, he's Indian. There are two other Indian guys that he traveled with that made it, that are big Hollywood stars. One is Aziz something with
Ansari.
Aziz Ansari was the other one from his improv troupe, and the other one was the guy from Parks and Rec.
Well, that was him. But was there another one?
Oh, I'm sorry. The other one with the guy from The Stoop, Joel McHale.
Yeah, Joe McHale. Yeah,
so
he's from Community.
That he was Community. So there's another guy that's on Community. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, yeah. There's an Indian on Community.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's
Abrar. That was his.
Okay,
that was his
name.
That was his name on the show. But I don't know what his real name is.
We'll have to name drop him afterwards.
Yeah.
Those two guys were the people that my instructor traveled with. That was his improv troupe. So
that's a pretty cool crew.
Yeah. So, I mean, he did, know some talent. So for him to pick me out, it was like, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't even be on this trajectory right now.
Wow.
And yeah. And, he believed in me, and my husband didn't even believe in me. And people in Chicago didn't encourage me. They were like, I mentioned that they're like, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, your mom, you what are you talking about, And even when I came out here and I think I'm going to start doing some stand-up out here, people were like, keep dreaming, whatever. Like, they were mad, And so I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. And then I did one show, was invited to another show, and I didn't go because my husband didn't like it. And so 2020, after my divorce was finalized, I'm just like, fuck it, I'm going to give it a shot full time. And I was invited to go to the Haha Club, and I was invited to go to what's it called? Ice House. From the Haha Ice House. I was invited to. I auditioned for TV shows. Got a gig to host a TV show at the beginning of this year, like a talk show. I was one of the hosts on a panel, and like all this stuff started happening, and then it all exploded because of COVID. So I was like, oh great, yeah. For a lot of people, right? It's just like you can't make plans, right? It exploded. But then what happened was July. A friend invited me to an open mic at a park because people had started doing comedy in parks and parking lots because all the places were closed. And he's come out.
Did Jerry Seinfeld also start that?
What?
Did Jerry Seinfeld also start that? Because he's doing he does the comedian cars. So I'm wondering, did he do the comedians in dog parks?
Oh yeah. That was before. He was just doing the car. Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah. But no, this is like outside in like parks and just open spots.
Dog parks.
And he invited me to do that, and I've been doing it like ever since, like every week now. It's great.
We have a friend of the show that moved from Arizona to California, and she started doing a comedy show on one of the beaches. I want to say... Is
that Brittany?
Oh.
Yeah, Brittany Peranahan. She does a show on the beach called Life's a Beach.
Life's a Beach.
Oh.
It seems like that's where people are gravitating to now. It's this outdoors, trying to get people to social distance but still see comedy.
Right, you have no choice. Yes,
Yeah.
you have no choice because everything's closed. Things are going to be starting to open up again, so we'll see. They just opened up like February 1st. So I don't know if the comedy clubs are open, but the restaurants are starting to open outdoor spaces.
Cool. Have you ever seen The Marvelous Miss Maisel?
Yeah.
Have you ever been?
watched?
Have you ever been compared to that with your story? Because it kind of,
Yeah,
that's kind of what it sounds like. Because,
What?
yeah, it's
So
it's exactly my life.
yeah, the story
crazy.
is basically he's a comedian. This takes place in like the 50s, 60s, right?
Yeah.
And she's a comedian, but she's not really a comedian. I'm not saying that you're not a comedian, Susie, but
No, but that wasn't her.
yeah, she
was
basically,
horrible.
she goes up there and she kills it.
Okay.
And he's been trying to do it, and that's her husband. And then
So
she ends up taking off. And
As
he kind of
she was telling her story, were you like,
I've heard this story. I know that. I've seen this.
What a
I've
jerk,
seen all these episodes. I've seen your life, Susie.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
I've lived it.
Okay,
Well,
so
we've lived it, right?
I've lived it. No, so when I was going through my divorce, it was like for like 18 months. I didn't leave home. I was like going to court. It was so depressing. It was so hard. And the only thing I actually did was watch, comedy on TV. I was making sure that my kids were okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't pretty. And my friend, I have a couple friends out here that moved to Chicago time, and I had improv class with, and they're like, "Holy shit, Susie! There's this show out. You have to see it. It's Marvelous Miss Maisel. It's like your life
story. It's your life story.
Yeah, I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not watching. And I couldn't even get through the first episode. I was like, I can't get through it. The first one was so long.
Yeah,
it does get through the first. Yeah, I was like, we met in college. We had this big what? Like, it was just like, so much was similar. And like, how she took care of the husband and did everything. Like, that was me too. Like, I totally was like, I got him the blood shots, got everything.
Yeah.
Made sure that he went into the school. You know what I mean? Like, I took care of everything. That's exactly the way I was. And I cooked and it was exactly my life. And on top of that, I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood, so I'm very Jewish.
So you definitely lived that life. Wow, that's you. I'm so excited that Miss Maisel is here. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I know. And you know what's so weird? Because someone just said that to me the other day on my podcast. They were like, your story sounds like... And I think they thought I made it up.
No. I believe you. It's awesome.
No, but I think they thought I made it up. They're like, yeah, we saw that story.
I've heard that before.
Now you need to go around and be like, yeah, I wrote it.
Oh, yeah, I wrote... Yeah, that's about me. Yes.
Well, the funny thing about it is, like, she falls in love with Lenny Bruce, or she flirts back with Lenny Bruce, and he's like, she's so cool and handsome, and I'm like, that's the only part that's not true, because
you're still waiting. You're still waiting.
At all.
You're still waiting for your Lenny Bruce. It's a good show, Amazon show, and Mark hasn't seen it, but I've seen them all.
No, now I gotta watch it.
The wife started watching it, and then I love comedy, so that when I saw that, I was like, all right. And it's a good show.
It is good, and it is kind of my story. And same thing. Like, I couldn't believe. Now it's been like 2 years, almost. We were separated and then divorced, so now it's like almost 3 years, and it's the same thing. He started calling and saying, I made a mistake. And I was like, oh my God, I just watched this episode.
You did. So I can't wait to see what season 4 brings for your life. And maybe that's what you should do. Watch season 4 and see what happens. Because maybe you should try to just like walk through it and see what fucking happens.
Right. I don't have to think anymore.
No,
it's like that.
Whatever the Amazon says, you just do.
Right. That's on my life. That's what everybody should do. You know what? 2020 was so fucked up. For 2021, just pick a show on TV and just do whatever the show does. One episode at a time.
That should be a whole little spin-off of everyone. Like, everyone should do that. Like, find something and just roll with it.
You're at work.
Mandalorian.
Mandalorian? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I'm the Mandalorian. I'm gonna put on a fucking trash can fucking helmet and just start fucking killing people in your office. They're still.
Did you guys see Mandalorian? Have you watched it at all?
I haven't seen. I haven't seen the new season yet.
No, I've seen all of it.
I've only seen the first season.
watched the first season. Okay. What did you think when you saw Bill Burr?
Oh,
Is that season 2 or
this is last season.
No,
no, it was.
he was in season 1?
Yeah, I couldn't even get through the first season because I saw Bill Burr and it pissed me off so bad I shut my laptop. So mad.
Well, he comes back. He comes
Season
back in
2?
this last episode or this last season too.
Yeah, I heard. Listen, he's a great comedian. A fucking ass. He was one of the best comedians. Yeah, maybe I could get over it, but he's not an actor like Tom Cruise where you can forget who he is.
Yeah,
he's still Bill Burr all the way. I don't care. You know what I mean? He was just Bill Burr the whole time.
Yeah,
and I was so fucking annoyed. And not only did I not I hated that episode. I hated all the people in that episode. It was just like, oh, you ruined it for me. You totally took me out of the universe. So I shut my laptop. I was so mad, and I'm like, even he's laughing. Then a minute later, I open the laptop up, and I'm like, now I have to see if Dave Chappelle is the Mandalorian and Chris is Baby Yoda.
for real.
And then I'm like, and Jeff Ross is going to come around the corner and be Jabba the Hutt, and it's
That would be Jeff Ross. So we say as Jabba the Hutt, yeah. As a more slender, I mean, not that he is like, but not as big as not as bad as Jabba turns into. It's gonna turn into.
And then the Mandalorian takes off his mask and it's just like, hey, I'm black, I'm Dave Chappelle. You know what I mean?
Oh shit! Like Clinton Bigsby.
Is that a baby?
That's what it was. Clinton Bigsby.
It's Chris Rocky's Baby Yoda. Yeah, whoa.
That is hilarious.
That'd be I'd rather watch that than what took place in the Mandalorian.
Right? It would have been so funny.
So much better.
Oh man, but yeah, I was like, oh man. How about WandaVision? Have you guys watched any of that?
I have watched most of the season. Wow, I've been watching a lot of TV. I just realized.
Yeah, you have. I heard it's really well. I heard the first episode's weird and not a lot of people liked it, and then I heard it started getting better, but I haven't seen any of it.
I'm caught up. So until this next episode. This last episode is pretty interesting.
Yeah, which is what I hear.
It
a lot
brings
of
me
it
back
is.
to the Avengers universe. It kind of everything's weird again. Like I like it.
What are you thinking about it, Susie? After you take your drink.
So I haven't watched it yet, but because it said WandaVision, I didn't realize it's part of the Marvel universe, right? I just thought I was so mad after The Mandalorian. I'm like, I'm not watching any more TV because I just got Disney Plus for Christmas. I was like, let's watch it, or New Year's. Let's watch it for New Year's.
Yeah.
And then I was so mad that I invested time in that, and then Bill Burr was like, hey, surprise, joke's on you. I'm like, you're such a jerk. You ruined it for me. So I was like, I'm not going to watch WandaVision. But I thought WandaVision was going to be some 1950s show. It was going to look marvelous, Mrs. Maisel. I didn't realize it was a Marvel thing until people started talking about it. So I have a podcast on stereo. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's a podcast kind of, but it's like you're this talking avatar thing, kind of like a cartoon.
Nice. Okay.
And it's interactive, so people can leave messages for you, and you guys are welcome to come on. But yesterday, I was on with Cliff Dorfman. He's a screenwriter, and he was talking about WandaVision, and people were asking about it because he's on TV, he writes and he's an actor and he's on TV and stuff, and they're very hits. Business partner, they're into all the shows. They talk about the shows, but they were talking about WandaVision. So I asked him, I said, if it's 1950s, why is it like that? Is it because it takes place in, Captain America time, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't he from that time? And he said no. So I'm like, what's the point then? He said, I don't know. And I'm like, well, that's not a good answer. I don't want to watch it now at all.
It's hard to talk about it, especially now that there's been multiple episodes out, because they've done all the trailers around the first episode, which is in the 1950s, but then things change.
But there's no reason.
There's what?
There's no reason for it to be in the 1950s, is what he said.
Yeah, I mean, there is.
That is kind of true.
As you get to episode 4, you realize what's happening, and you're like, you see the reason, but it's not really spelled out either.
I bet you.
Because that's exactly what he said. If you're going to watch it, just start with episode 4. He said you wouldn't miss anything.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I don't know too, because if you watch the first couple, you're trying to. they're breaking a puzzle apart, but then when you get to episode 4, they spell it out for you a little bit.
Okay. Well, so for someone who's got very little, like a short attention span, I'm like, if you don't get my attention, I'm bored. I'm shutting it.
That's me
like,
too.
The build.
Yeah.
So that's why he told me, he's like, Susie, if you don't want to watch it, he goes, just start with episode 4. Hey, so have you guys watched Entourage before?
Oh yeah.
And that is Cliff.
Okay.
That's Cliff Dorfman.
Yes, so that's Cliff. I was just gonna say, you guys knew. I didn't know. I had no idea.
I just looked it up, so I'm not gonna. I could have lied and said, "Oh, I knew that," but no.
Yeah,
that
so
name sounded familiar. Sounded familiar.
Scheduled the podcast with him. He's on stereo, and the same thing. I looked him up before. I was like, "Holy shit!" He said yes to me. I go, he's a big shot. He wrote the first season of Entourage, uncredited, and that's how he got on the second season. So I was like, holy shit. So I was asking him all these questions about Entourage. It was so cool for me. And most of the listeners on my podcast are young, so they didn't know what Entourage was. So I know you guys do, because I'm like, oh, it's so cool. Because like back in the day, I totally watched Entourage.
Yeah.
So the best thing he said in that last night, I want to share it with you because I'm so glad that you guys know. Because I'm like, I have no one to share this with. None of my listeners know. And my co-host on my podcast is in her 30s. So I'm like, oh, she's just like barely 30. She didn't watch Entourage. I was like, ah. So he said that when he met Mark Wahlberg, he's like, Mark Wahlberg is the kind of guy who he's like, I told him that I really liked the main character. I said I really liked Vinny a lot. I liked Vincent a lot because of the fact that he was so likable, he could get away with all that misogynistic stuff and all the sex and stuff. You didn't feel like, oh, he's such an asshole, you know? Yeah. And he goes, well, we decided that because, Mark is so alpha. Mark isn't Mark Wahlberg. He's like, oh, Mark. And I'm thinking, you mean Mark Wahlberg in my head? Like, how cool, right? He's like, yeah, so Mark is so alpha, so we decided we needed someone who was more like a Johnny Depp type for the role. So we auditioned everybody, and Vincent, Vinny is the last one, and then he got the role. They knew they wanted him from the beginning. But Mark Wahlberg was the kind of guy, he was so alpha that he's the kind of guy that would make a guy's dick just curl back up inside of him. When he saw them, I was like, oh my God. So I said, well, what was it like? I go, did you meet him? He goes, yeah. He's like, I've met him several times. Did I party with him? Yes. Have I worked with him? Yes. Would he remember who I was? No, absolutely not.
That's too funny.
So I was like, oh, it's so cool. I go, so tell me about the episodes. I go, were they true? Did they happen? Did all the sex happen? He goes, yes, the sex happened, but not on the movie set. I said, okay. He said, but all the stories, he's like, the thing that him and his partner said is all the stories on Entourage, it had to be true. Like it had to happen to someone in the writing room. Yeah. True. What was he said? It was like true, tits, and I forgot the third one, but there were like 3 T's, and I forgot. But I thought it was so cool. I'm like, oh, so they're true stories. So you guys remember the episode where Drama goes and like leaves his phone and drives off to the Grand Canyon?
I do, yes.
So that was his story. That was Cliff Dorfman's story. He did it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he got so upset. He just like left, and he went to Joshua Tree. He's like, every year he does a vision quest. He just goes out to Joshua Tree and he has mushrooms once a year. Nice. Comes back. Yeah, so it was like, this was his story. I was like, oh my God, tell me what else. And then the Bob Saget story. Remember the Bob Saget where he's like, Vinny, he's like, don't fuck my girls. Like, these are my girls. Make sure you don't fuck my girls or something like that. I was like, oh my God. He's like, yeah, Vincent. He's like, Bob Saget said that in real life to one of his friends. So that was like, these are real lines that actually happened. I was like, oh my God. Awesome. He's like, yeah, Bob Saget's a good friend of mine. I'm like, oh my God. Like, it's just crazy Hollywood stuff. I'm like, wow, this is the first time I'm hearing all this. And he lives by the Kardashians. He said he was a bouncer and he knew Kim Kardashian when she was just friends with, Paris Hilton, and they hung out because he was starting out at that time as a bride. I'm like, wow, this is so cool.
A lot of juicy news.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, I hear Bob Saget's really funny and hilarious. Like, he's a real cool person too in real life, is what I've heard too. So that's awesome.
This guy was so nice and down to earth. Like, he's been on the podcast. He's one of they have. So it's called Starburn Audios. They're on, if you guys ever want to check it out, on so Starburn Audio, the CEO of Starburn Audio, his name is Jason Smith. So Jason Smith and Cliff Dorfman do a podcast together on stereo. Okay. And part of thing with stereo is that you're encouraged to have talks with other people. So they have talks with other people all the time. And there's a lot of like comic book nerds, you know, the comic book guys that like jump on. They can't wait to talk to Starburns Audio. Can't wait to talk to Jason Smith. He knows everything about everything, right?
Yeah.
So I jumped on. I left a message. I said, "Hey, I love your talks. I'd love to get on with you sometime, but I know nothing about TV and movies. I just would like to talk to you, okay?"
Yeah.
So, of course, he says yes. And I said, okay, what I want to talk about, and I put this in my topic. Why the fuck was Bill Burr in Mandalorian and ruined that shit?
Nice.
So then, I get all this hate messages in my DM.
Was it all Bill Burr? Was it all Bill Burr? Like,
Yeah,
alias
yeah.
names? It's him just hitting you up.
No, it was just from Bill Burr.
Yeah, it's all from him. It was him sending hate mail.
Yeah,
That's what it was.
It was from
It
Bill
was
Burr.
from him.
No, they were the comic book guy friends. You know what I mean? They were
Yeah,
just
oh,
like,
yeah.
how could you say that? Bill Burr's such a great actor and he's in this, that, and the other. I'm like, I'm a stand-up comedian. Bill Burr is a stand-up comedian. He's one of the best. That's what I know him as, and I know him too well as that. If he wasn't as good at it, or if he was an actor like Tom Cruise, I'm like, he's not Tom Cruise status where you can forget about him, you know? I go, he's so distinctive in his voice and his, you know, and it was just like, it didn't make sense. I would have preferred to have seen really like Chappelle in it then. You know, or some. Like if you're gonna put someone in there, then be diverse. Like, why Bill Burr? Why the big Irish dude? Like, it just seemed like so out of place, right?
Yeah.
Anyways,
I'm
just upset.
I think he makes. I think he makes up for it though in this last season. If
you,
see,
now you have to watch Susie. So you have to watch season 2 now.
Okay. I was so mad that he was back. I was so happy. I'm like, well, at least they killed. I'm like, at least they like got rid of him after the first episode. They're like, he's back. I'm like, okay, I'm not watching it. That's it.
I think he makes up for it though. Like what happens? Yeah, I don't want to spoil it.
Well, not only, but isn't it kind of weird? Like, because it's not that I'm not.
That is weird.
It's one thing if I hated him, but I don't.
What about?
I'm a fan.
Did you see him in Breaking Bad? He was in Breaking Bad.
No, that's what people said. He's excellent in Breaking Bad.
He was good in that.
I don't remember.
Yeah,
he was. Yeah, he was with. Damn, what was his name? The other comedian, the big black dude. I can't think what his name is. Those two were the guys that were working for.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
okay.
Those were the two like henchmen for.
Yeah, he was good in that.
For Saul, for Better
Yeah.
Call Saul guy.
Okay.
I don't know if have you seen any of Breaking Bad at all? I mean,
well, I met him. I met what's the guy's name?
Bryan Cranston.
No, not Bryan Cranston. What's the other one?
The other one, Jesse Pinkman, which I can't think of what is. Aaron Paul.
Yeah, Aaron Paul.
No, I guess I'm not the guy's name.
All right, so Better Call Saul, which is I can't think of what his name is.
Isn't his name Saul? The Better Call. What's the actor's name?
That is his his.
That's the guy.
Character
Saul.
name. Yeah. I can't think of what his name is though. But
like I didn't know who he was. So he was at UCB, the Upright Citizens Brigade, and there were a bunch of people outside, and they were so excited to see him. They were screaming to see him. I had no idea who he was. I was inside with Andy Dick. Andy Dick had just performed on stage, and Andy asked me to take a picture. He's like, "Hey, Susie, would you mind taking a picture with me?" And oh my God, it's killing me. I didn't know his name. And
Bob Odenkirk.
Yes, Odenkirk. Okay, so
yeah.
So Bob Odenkirk, he's like, "Hey, Susie, would you mind taking a picture of me with me and Bob Odenkirk?" And like, it was me and a few other people. We had taken a class with Andy Dick before. That's why we knew him, and he invited us to his show. And the people that were there were like kind of like fanboying over Bob Odenkirk, but he knew that I wasn't interested, so he asked me to take a picture, or maybe he asked me to take a picture because I was Asian, right? So then he was like, "Oh," I can hear him like talking to Bob. He's like, "Oh, Bob, nobody knows that I know you. You know, I tell people we're friends, so please take this picture with me." And then he's like, "Susie, you know, meet Bob. Bob, nice to meet you." I'm like, "Oh, nice to meet you, Bob, whatever." I take a picture. And then he looks at me and he stops and he goes, "Susie, you have no idea who this is, do you?" No, I'm sorry. I'm like, I'm sorry. I had kids and unless it's like on Disney Junior.
Yeah, that's not on Disney.
I don't know.
Yeah. And
so his ego just went like I deflated. He was so sad in the picture.
Oh.
I wasn't trying to be mean. It was just, I wasn't going to lie. I didn't, I'm not a good liar. And Andy asked me, and he's a fucker because he knew I didn't know who he was, but he called me out on it, right?
Sounds like Andy.
So,
he's such a dick.
Yeah, he's such a dick. So he's like, Susie. Yeah, you know his voice. Susie, you have no idea who this is, do you? And I'm like, no, sorry. I'm like, I don't watch TV. I have young kids. And so, yeah, Bob Odenkirk was so upset. And then finally, he went to the bathroom and he looked so sad and he went away. And then I ran to the bathroom. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I totally know who you are. I saw you on Tim and Eric.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's probably not one that he would remember. Or I'm sure he. Yeah, that's a good show. That is a good show.
It would have been hilarious if she ran up to him and she's like, "Oh no, I know who you are. You're from Jake and the Neverland Pirates."
Yeah.
Oh yeah, a Disney show or a Nickelodeon show. You did a voice of.
Yes. You were double for Mickey.
Did you do the voice for Boots for a little bit?
Oh, I don't know.
With Dora? No, I'm making that up, but I'm just saying.
Oh,
Can you do the voice for Boots?
Boots.
Swiper? Weren't you the voice for Swiper?
Can you do the accent?
Yeah. Hilarious.
So I went out to him and I said that in the bathroom. I was like, oh, wait, before we went to the bathroom, wait. Oh, I know who you are. You were in Tim and Eric. And he looks at me and he said, yeah, I was in Tim and Eric and a lot of other things.
Yeah, a lot of other things. That's hilarious.
It was like a huge star on Better Call Saul outside of the theater. It was locked. There were all these people that were like, bye, yelling for him. I'm like, hey, you're from Tim and Eric.
Oh my God, that's too funny.
That is hilarious.
That is an awesome story.
I felt so the next day I called Andy Dick and I'm like, you know what? I'm so sorry. I hope your friend didn't think I was an asshole, but I didn't know what to do. I wasn't gonna lie. I mean, I go and I asked Andy. I said, what was I supposed to do in that situation? I don't know who a lot of actors are, but I feel like I insulted him. So I go, what's the correct situation? Should I have said, oh, I know who he is and bullshit? But and he's like, no, just be yourself. And I said, but he goes, no, just be yourself. But you did totally crush his ego.
That's so Andy.
So it's just like, oh my God.
That's something that I would do though, because I have a terrible memory.
Yeah,
and, seeing somebody.
The older we get.
Yeah, I remember. And they would see it on my face, I don't know you.
Important stuff. You don't remember stuff with TVs. That's what you used to get away with, to make your brain escape, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Remember when you were a kid, things like that important moments.
Right. So crazy.
That's so funny. You guys watch Tim and Eric?
I have I've never, but I know of it. I know it's on not Comedy Central, but I know it's on Adult Swim late night. But I've never seen it. But I know they have a lot of good people on there. They've had what's his face from Step Brothers on there.
Oh, fucking
what's his face?
John C. Reilly. He's my favorite.
John C. Reilly. He's hilarious.
See, we're doing it right now.
Yeah. See, we're both. I got to look shit up. Hang on.
Right. Because you know what? I saw him too, and I saw him walking. And that's funny. There's another one that I knew from him and Eric. And again, I had no idea who he was. I was going to work. It was a Saturday morning. I had to go in early in the morning. My husband was dropping me off, and I rolled down the window, and he was dressed up in a suit. He was filming. He was dressed up in a suit for, what was the film where he played that singer? He was playing that great movie.
Walking the Line, or...
Yeah, Walk the Line. So he was there to film Walk the Line. He was filming something in Chicago for Walk the Line.
Yeah.
He was taking a walk down the Chicago River. He was on the bridge.
Or Dewey Cox, actually, if it's John C. That was the real version. Walk the Line was the Joaquin Phoenix real one.
Yeah. Dewey Cox. So he was dressed in the suit. He was dressed in the brown suit. He was walking across the Chicago River. He was just either taking a break from set or going to set or something.
Or he just wears that normally because that's fucking hilarious too.
The windows roll down. Nobody's there. My husband's driving me. I was in the passenger side, and I see him walking down the Chicago River. And no one's there. Rolling my window. Go, hey! Oh my God! That's the guy from Tim and Eric.
You did it again.
it was the guy from Tim and Eric, and it ends up, my husband's like, which one? And I said, look, and I showed him, like, who is his? I'm like, I don't know, let me look him up. Like oh, he's a huge actor. I can't believe you know these people only from Tim and Eric.
That's hilarious. So that means that means you're up late with your hiding the chocolate, weed, watching Tim and Eric in your mushroom area of the house. Late at night.
Tim and Eric, pre-kids, you know. I think I maybe just had my kids, you know, so that's why I was watching all this Adult Swim at the time.
Yeah, because I mean, being up that late, maybe that's why I don't watch it, because I'm not up that late anymore these days.
Yeah, I think that was the problem. Like when I first had my daughter, I didn't know what people did with kids that, you know, because you just stay up all night, right? You're feeding the baby, you're just all. So I didn't know what to do. So I watched Adult Swim. Then I started taking my daughter out to bars at night, and I didn't even think about it. Like I was like, oh well, what else am I going to do? Because they didn't allow smoking inside anymore. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, we can go to sports bars. And then people would look at me like I was crazy. Like, why is your kid out? And I'm like, well, what am I going to do? She's sleeping, and then she's going to get up in 2 hours. What's the difference?
Yeah.
I had no clue that I was like, oh my God, I'm at a bar. Like, I didn't even think about it being wrong at all. I just thought, well, I'm up all night, so is the baby. Who else is up all night? People at bars, so I'm going to bring my kid to the bar. And now looking back, I'm like, I was the worst parent.
That's too funny.
Again, the reason I'm naming the episode Parenting Advice.
Parenting Advice. Good time.
Oh, man. And you know what? If you met my kids, you'd be like, wow, your kids are so mature and well-adjusted. It's like,
well, because they're watching Tim and Eric with you late at night. That's why they learn so much. They know all the actors you know.
They know you drink.
The life experiences.
They go to all the stand-up comedy with me. They're like the two judges.
Yeah, they're gonna get enough there
the whole
too.
Scene, then.
Yeah, they're gonna get enough there.
Two judges from the Muppets. You know, they're just crit. Man, that guy stinks. Not funny at all. Where's his punchline? He's gotta punch it. I'm like, oh my God, you guys are so bad.
Yeah, you two old guys.
Yeah, the two old guys. That's how my kids are at the shows.
That is hilarious.
And they're really good at stand-up when a kid will recite the set afterwards.
Yeah.
Or repeat the jokes. And I'm like, oh, but when they'll say it, they're like, that's not even funny. And they say it out loud, that's not even funny. I'm like, shh, guys.
Oh, they're hecklers. It's amazing.
Nice.
They are hecklers. So do you guys perform stand-up?
No, I'm toying with the idea, but I haven't worked up the nerve to actually go. And I typically do go out to like the open mics and hang out with some of the local comedians here. We've got them to come on the podcast and things like that, but I just don't have anything written yet.
And I haven't been back on stage since the flood, so you know I don't want to talk any more about that. But yeah, once that I get over that fear, I'll be back on stage.
What do you mean the flood?
I've said too much. I've said too much.
Don't even.
Okay.
I've said too much.
You performed stand-up before?
I was on a stage, and then it was a boat full of water, and there was too much water, so I won't. Anytime it's near water, I don't want to do it.
Don't listen to him.
Okay.
I made that up. I made all that up. But no, I've never done stand-up.
Unless you were on Tim and Eric, I wouldn't recognize you anyway. So.
I keep trying. They don't return my email.
Take his material.
But here's the thing: I'm referencing a show that's like 10 years old. You know, that's how up to date I am with TV shows.
Yeah,
it's like pre-Instagram. You know, the show existed before Instagram did.
Exactly.
Maybe even before Facebook. Like, I don't even know if there was Facebook at the time.
That's a good question. I don't know.
That is a good question.
I was describing college
be around for
kids
10 years already. Yeah. Maybe.
I was describing dial-up internet with kids today on my podcast. And then someone picks up the phone, and you're just going to, motherfucker! How do I get?
That's so
We're
true.
like, what? I'm like, we didn't have internet until we were done with college. Like, we had to, like, type stuff on typewriters.
Oh.
And we had computers, but it was like there was one printer for the school. It was like a computer lab, and we had one printer, and we all that maker.
Right.
Yep.
Oh, you lived in ancient times. We had no idea you were so old. I'm like, Buddha and I are the same age. That's right.
What is whiteout?
What is that?
What is whiteout?
Whiteout. Right.
Well,
that's so funny.
I know that you have another show to get to after this, so I appreciate that you came on. I know we're going to put your Patreon in the show notes, but do you have anything that you want to drop or promote or
talk about?
Oh, yeah. Thanks, guys. So I have, I have a Zoom show coming up tomorrow for sketchy women at soapboxcomedy.com. You can check it out on Instagram. It's a free Zoom show. You can see my stand-up comedy. Let's see, I've got, what else? I've got a live show. You can't go to the live shows unless you're in LA. Live show River Grove on the 12th. I'm doing a comedy contest on April 20th for Crazy Woke Asians, first comedy contest.
Nice.
Then Saturday, I'll be at the park again, at the dog park, performing stand-up in front of dogs and the homeless here in Beverly Hills. And then I have a Patreon account. So this is how I'm going to try and sell my stand-up comedy. So instead of releasing it for free, I'm going to take Howard Stern's advice and not give anything out for free, right?
Yeah,
so,
good stuff.
The older days, people charged $1. I charge $3 on my Patreon account because I think I'm worth it. $3. It's less than a cup of coffee. It's $3 a month. I put all of my stand-up that I do for the month. I promise at least one live video, one podcast, one behind-the-scenes pictures. I do about three shows a week, so that's pretty much what I put out there. But it definitely, not only does the money help me get to shows because it pays for my gas, but it's really more of an encouragement that I'm on the right track, that you're, up for helping an underdog and you believe in the dream and the creativity. So I'm a single mom. It really helps. And so if you guys want to join my Patreon, I'd really appreciate it. My kids appreciate it. And I'll keep doing comedy. So thanks, guys.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So make sure that link will be in our show notes. And then also always go and check out the Amigos. We're on everything Amigos PC, Amigospc.net. And Amigos out.
Hugs and kisses.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
This has been the Amigos PC. Make sure to like, subscribe, and review us on all your podcasting platforms. Visit us at Amigospc.net for our entire library of content and Amigos merch. Till next time, adios.